Hi, I'm Damien.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome to the Suburb Data Podcast, where we cover everything from property investing to expert busting. If you're new here, we share our personal and professional experiences from over 20 years in the game. So you skip the mistakes we made and go straight to property investment success. And Jez, today, buying property with friends or family, smart or risky?
Yes.
So let's say we've got Alana with us today. Hi, Alana, our resident mortgage broker from Melbourne.
Hello,
G'day,
you
Alana.
two. Hi, great to see you.
Yes, so I thought it will dial you in because I do have some broking questions. But before we get started, I think Jez, why do you think this whole co-ownership business is so popular? Or I can ask Alana, why do you think it's popular?
Probably exactly what you guys are alluding to, that you can get into the property market potentially sooner if you're buying with a friend or a family member, and you can potentially get a better asset than what you can on your own.
I think from what I've like dealing with all the clients that I have, and I think you're the same, Alana, I did notice like a lot of people, deposit is most probably the biggest challenge, and they go, oh, I'll buy with my brother or sister or family member or friend. And my alarm bells would normally go off right away when I hear that, because there's a just the amount of risks or no game plan. It's like buy a property, but then after that, what's the exit plan? And I think, how does pooling resources boost buying power?
Yep, great question. So I think it's important to get professional advice from an accountant and a lawyer if you are going to buy with a non-spousal person, meaning friends or family, brothers or sisters, siblings. Maybe one person has a fantastic job and the other person's just finished uni and they're sort of climbing their way up the ladder. They may not have had a lot of time to save money. So as an example, if they want to buy a $600,000 property, they wouldn't be able to do it on their own. But buying with, say, a sibling, maybe one person would buy 60% of that property and the other sibling might buy 40%. You'd want to get legal advice, but I'd recommend tenants in common, in my opinion, because that allows you to buy the uneven percentage. It also allows you to isolate the debt depending on what lender you go to. So in that example of the $600,000 purchase price, the person who's buying 60% of the property, their loan would be, they'd be buying $480,000 worth of the property. They'd borrow 80%. So their loan would be about $380K. Then they'd come up with their portion of deposits and costs.
Before you do those numbers for listeners out there, like what is tenants in common?
Sure. So tenants is common is where you're buying a percentage of the property. So joint tenants is where if something happens to the other person that you've bought the property with, generally ownership will fall to the other person. There's no way around that. With your tenants in common, you might buy, say, 99.1%. Even couples may do this where for tax reasons, someone only wants to have, a 1% shareholding. And then they want, say, the husband who's working at that time, the wife might be off, being a housewife, having kids. So they don't want to have a lot of the ownership, because then the 99% person will get all the tax benefits and negative gearing. So the same thing with buying with tenants in common with a sibling or a friend, it allows you to buy at uneven percentages.
Uneven percentages.
With joint tenants, you're both, 100% owners, or say 50-50 together.
50-50. And back to the example that you were mentioning before, let's say that 60-40 example. So I do understand that someone would have 60% ownership of the asset, but they're taking more debt on. So I think what I wanted to get to the point with this is that, and we'll talk about examples more at the back end because I do have examples to step through. But it's like, let's say I'm building out my portfolio. The big advantage with buying with a friend, family, is that I can get it into the market. So if I've only got, let's say, $30,000 in the bank, I'm very much limited. But my brother or sister might have $100,000. So we can go in together, even though it's going to be uneven, we can join our resources and purchase a more maybe premium type property sooner on. Where instead, otherwise, if I've got $30,000, I'm still saving and the market might move away from me. So that's the big benefit I see is you get into the market a little bit earlier. The disadvantage, though, is when I've, let's say, bought that property, my income's gone up, now I want to start separating and I want to keep accumulating. A lot of the banks will go, sorry, we're going to take 100% of the debt that you're sharing with the member, but we're only going to take whatever your component of the rent is. Let's say we use 50% as an example. So that's where I've noticed it can really hold you back from accumulating, because a lot of people just think, oh, I'll buy with a family or friend, or they watch these TV shows thinking it's simple, but there's no game plan a lot of the time. But back to the lending question, that's where the big hold up is, isn't it? Is as you try to keep accumulating, you've got different goals and it can slow you down.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's why it's important to get the ownership structure set up correctly at the start. Say doing something like the tenants in common and going to a lender that offers a property share type of lending arrangement. So you only have responsibility for your loan, and that your portion of the loan only comes up on your internet banking. And you can even have an offset account where you can be offsetting and saving interest on your portion of the loan. The other person also has their own portion of the loan showing in their internet banking. You can't get into their internet banking or see their loan. But if something happens and they default, then you are responsible, because you have to guarantee their portion of the loan. But obviously, you know, that won't come into effect unless something is to happen and they stop making their repayments on their portion. And you only need to be able to service your portion of the loan and come up with your portion of the costs or savings required to complete on that purchase when it settles. And then in the future, when you are looking to do more lending, say, you know, fast forward a few years and you meet a partner and you want to buy a home together, you need to take caution as to what lender you'll approach for that next bit of lending, because you need a lender that has a non-spousal common debt reducer policy. There's probably only about 4 or 5 in the market at this point in time. And that allows the lender to only use your portion of the debt in their capacity calculators, and they ignore the other person's debt. But you may need to give a little bit of evidence that the other person has a job and can afford their repayments, but it's very minimal.
I think
which is great.
I think the key, and thanks for adding all that. I think the key point is, like, you're limited. So if you're going for that second property, third property, you're going to be limited in the lenders and options that you have while you're going through your accumulation phase. So I believe that, in my experience, if you can do it on your own, you try and do it on your own. Like, let's say I'd buy my own property, my brother, sister, or friend, they can do it themselves, because it just causes less headaches, because everyone that I've dealt with in the past never had an exit plan. Yeah, I just bought a property, but then they're limited into accumulating. So I think, yeah, they're the main things that I wanted to bring up. So thank you for that feedback. Was there anything else you had to add, Alana, to that?
Oh, no, that's about everything. Yeah, you just really need to take into account a lot of considerations and make sure you have a great relationship with the person that you are buying tenants in common with. Even just simple things like, you know, selecting the tenant, you need to agree on everything to do with the property, maintenance, any issues. So
it's a good point, because if there's any unexpected costs, and let's say I'm great with my money management, but my family member, brother or sister or friend is hopeless with their money management, they're traveling or buying new cars, whatever it might be, enjoying themselves, and then it holds things up, doesn't it? Because then it falls back on me. Like, let's say there's a $10,000 repair that I need to factor in, but they've got no money, and that all comes back on me, or they lose their job, or I lose my job. So it's not just buying that first property. You need to think about everything.
Yeah,
exactly right.
I think it's like you said, tenants in common for the best legal structure, but picture yourself with your joint venture partner as if you are married, as if you are one entity. Because, you are going to be making decisions as if you're a married couple.
Well, it's like business. We know that now, Jeremy, don't we? Like, you need to be on the same page, and you need to have open discussions and healthy chats. And I think open and trust is the most important thing in business, but also in, you know, buying properties with your family members. I think, like, again, from my time with all the plans that I did, I can't remember anyone really having any legal documentation. They just sort of bought with their brothers or sisters and didn't have anything in writing. I didn't see the buying with friends too much. I did see a lot with family members, and there was nothing in writing. So I think you'd have to go, I think good practice is have some type of agreement in place, whoever you buy a property with, like what's the exit strategy? Because things are going to change in your life. You're on a different path. So would you agree with that, Alana? Like having...
Oh, definitely. You'd want some sort of agreement worked out, and even some lenders may require you to get legal advice when you're at loan document stage as well with these property share arrangements, because it is like a marriage, as Jeremy said.
All right. No worries. Well, thank you for that, and we'll have you on the podcast again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks
we always
again,
love
Alana.
having you on, Alana.
No, thank you. Looking forward to it.
See you in Melbourne soon.
Alana of
See you
We
soon.
Mortgage Solutions.
Alana from We Mortgage Solutions. All right,
Thanks.
Alana.
See ya.
Bye.
Catch you. Bye.
All righty. I think they were really good points and can provide a lot of insights into listeners. But I think the main thing is, what's the exit plan? Like if you're going into this property, is the goal that you're going to cash in once you get all that capital growth?
Yeah, that's right. I haven't done terribly many joint ventures, but I do know that I believe the secret is exit soon rather than later. And instead of having an open-ended agreement where all parties agree on a particular exit, something pops up, someone gets married, someone gets sick, someone dies, and then you discuss the exit. Instead, you have an exit in the short term, like 2, 3, 4 years, and then everyone has to agree to continue if that seems more appropriate. So most people, they just have it open-ended, and then something changes, and then you've got to discuss, how do we exit now? Instead, I think you need to have a deliberately planned short-term joint venture, and then you only extend it in exceptional circumstances.
I think that, you mentioned a really good point. More than likely, you're on two different paths, and one person's want to exit, and you need to have something in writing or even that open discussion about it beforehand. But I think writing's good because you can easily say, can't remember talking about that. So I think having it in writing is really, really crucial.
Yeah. I've personally been in a JV myself, and I changed, my circumstances changed like within 6 months of starting, and I had to bail out.
So that was with a friend?
Yeah, with a friend, and I left them in the lurch. So, it's life. Everything changes. Nothing lasts forever. You've got to assume that everything's going to be different in just a few years, and you only extend on the odd case where nothing has changed.
And did that impact the relationship?
No, we're still good mates.
Yeah, but you did one before that worked out really well. So it was like a JV where you did a lot of the renovations and all that work, correct?
Yeah. It's I'm in a position now where I don't need to partner with anyone, but I have done the JVs before, and I think the secret is it's got to be short term. The longer it is, the more you risk something happening in the future, which was unexpected.
Yeah, I had a while ago, like a brother and sister come in and they wanted to go together, but then I realised after doing some strategy work that they could do it. I could tell they were on different paths, and they eventually decided to buy separately in their both names. But initially they wanted to go together, but they ended up doing it themselves. One, just because they were, like I said, on a different path. One was going to go overseas. Someone else was going to stay in Sydney. One had a partner, the other didn't. So it was a bit all over the shop. And I just recognised it needed to be separated. I had another one, a single lady, and she had about 3 to 4 properties, and a couple of them with her brother, and they had to restructure everything. She had to buy some part of the ownership because she was restricted to keep accumulating her portfolio because she had gone in with her brother on these properties. Another one is, I don't know how much you'd put into this one, but I know it's like a friend of a friend bought a property, land and house package a fair while ago, paid $830, worth about 1.2 now, obviously because it's been 7-8 years in the market, and in the sort of Sydney area it's done well, but I'm sure you could have picked other markets that have done a lot better. Much better than that. But then when the rates were low, put a deposit down on a block of land. Another. But when the rates were low, so it takes maybe, let's say, 1 year to 2 years for the land to be registered, and then a land and house package with a brother again, needed to wait for it to be registered. So this was at a 3% interest rate in her mind. What happens? Fast forward 3 years later, the rates are at 6.6, and that block of land has dropped close to maybe 200,000. Can't sell it, and the land and house package, same thing, is going to break even. But she put herself in this scenario where she was thinking to herself, "Oh, these rates are really low." And then once the block gets registered, because these land and house packages, they want you to sign the paper. They just want to cash in on the deal. But once that block registered, you couldn't get lending, and it was just an absolute nightmare. But my point here is that like her brother had to come in and sort of save her and become like a joint, I'd say like 50-50 ownership on one of the properties just to help her out. Luckily, he was in a good spot, but just a bit of a nightmare stuff.
Yeah, perhaps overextending. I've been there myself.
Overextending, but I think even if you're looking at rates now, always have your buffers in place. I think that's the point I just wanted to make with that. I guess another point is, let's say you receive some type of inheritance, okay, and brother and sister, they receive inheritance, they receive a property, and then it's like, okay, well, what do we do? Because let's say you've got 50-50 ownership. Again, need to have that discussion on what to do, but things you need to consider is that you can hold that property together and just receive maybe rental income, but then there's also a period of maybe where there's no capital gains for the first 2 years on that property.
Right, yeah. If you continue to own that property, you will eventually have a CGT liability. And
I think it's a matter of, is your money better else put somewhere else? And you got to remember, you're always going to be on different paths. So it's just, have those open discussions. But I think good episode. I think the main thing there is that listeners should think about is, can you do it yourself?
Ideally, do it yourself. Yeah. Do you really need to partner with someone? Is it really going to make that much of a difference? Because it could get ugly really quickly.
And put something in writing. That's the key takeaway for me.
Put something in writing and exit early. Have a plan to exit early.
All right, Jeremy. So where can listeners go for more information, resources?
Well, hopefully you like this and you want more. So there's a subscribe link that you can use. If there's someone else who's considering investing with family or friend, then maybe you can use the share button to share this episode with them. And let us know if this is the sort of thing that you're interested in hearing more of. There's a like button. Yeah,
you can send an email to podcast@suburbdata.com.au or just leave a comment in the comments section. But subscribe, like, share to the world. Thanks for tuning in and see you in our next episode. Bye for now and take care.